The first thing I remember about that morning in the South African bush is the silence. Not the peaceful kind you get in a quiet park, but the heavy, watchful silence that feels like the land itself is holding its breath. I had arrived in South Africa 3 days earlier. A 27-year-old backpacker from Colorado who thought he understood nature because he spent weekends hiking in the Rockies. Standing in the dry grass of the bushveld that morning, I realized I understood absolutely nothing. The sun had barely climbed above the horizon when our small safari group left the lodge. The air smelled of dust, dry grass, and something earthy that reminded me of old wood and soil after rain. Our guide, a quiet man named Sipho, walked ahead with slow, careful steps, scanning the horizon as if the land was speaking to him. I was at the back of the group, clutching a camera that suddenly felt like the most useless object in the world. The bush around us was a patchwork of thorn trees, scattered rocks, and tall yellow grass that brushed against my legs with a soft whisper. Birds called in the distance, sharp and sudden. Somewhere far away, a troop of baboons barked at something unseen. Every sound seemed louder than it should have been. Sipho had warned us before we left the vehicle. Stay close, walk quietly, and if I say stop, you stop. I nodded along with everyone else, but inside I was buzzing with excitement. I had traveled halfway across the world to see wild Africa. I wanted the raw experience, the kind you can't get from watching documentaries. At that moment, the bush felt beautiful and mysterious. It didn't feel dangerous. That illusion lasted about 40 minutes. We had been walking slowly through an open stretch of grassland dotted with low acacia trees when Sipho suddenly froze. His hand lifted slightly, signaling us to stop. The change in his body language was immediate and unmistakable. The relaxed guide vanished, replaced by someone alert and tense. I stopped breathing. He crouched near the ground and studied something in the dust. Footprints. Even from where I stood, I could see they were huge. Sipho spoke quietly without turning around. Rhino tracks, fresh. My heart jumped, but not from fear, from excitement. Seeing a rhino in the wild sounded incredible. I leaned slightly to the side, trying to get a better look. That was my first mistake. Sipho slowly turned his head toward us, his voice barely above a whisper. White rhino. Very close. The group tightened together. Suddenly, the bush didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like we had stepped into someone else's territory without permission. A warm breeze moved through the grass, carrying a strange smell. Musky, heavy, almost like wet earth mixed with something animal. I didn't know it then, but that smell was a warning. We moved again, but slower this time. Every step felt deliberate. The grass brushed against my jeans with soft swishing sounds that suddenly seemed way too loud. My ears were straining for anything unusual. That's when I heard it. A deep, rough snort. It came from somewhere ahead, hidden behind a cluster of thorn trees. Sipho's hand shot up again. Stop! The entire group froze instantly. The bush went silent again, but it was different now. Tense, charged. I could hear my own breathing. Then came another sound. Heavy footsteps. Not the light rustling of antelope. These were slow, crushing steps, like something massive pushing through the brush. Sipho whispered sharply, "Back, slowly." We began to step backward, one careful step at a time. My heart was pounding now, but I still hadn't seen the animal. Part of my brain kept telling me it would be fine, that we would quietly leave and laugh about it later. Then the bushes exploded. A massive gray body burst through the thorn trees like a living tank. The rhino was enormous, far bigger than anything I had imagined. Its thick skin looked like layered armor plates, and its horn curved forward like a sharpened spear. For a split second, the animal stopped. Its small eyes locked onto us. Then it charged. The sound of it running was unbelievable. Each step slammed into the ground with the force of a hammer. The earth literally vibrated beneath my boots. "Run!" Sipho shouted. The group scattered instantly. Adrenaline exploded through my body as I turned and sprinted into the tall grass. My backpack bounced wildly against my shoulders as I ran. Branches clawed at my arms. The grass whipped against my face. Behind me, the pounding footsteps grew louder. Much louder. I didn't dare look back at first. Every instinct screamed to just run faster. My lungs burned as I pushed my legs harder than I ever had in my life. Then I glanced over my shoulder. The rhino was maybe 30 feet behind me. Its head was low, horn pointed forward like a battering ram. Dust exploded beneath its feet as it barreled toward me with terrifying speed. I had never understood before that rhinos could run that fast. In that moment, I was certain I was about to die. My brain scrambled for something, anything that might save me. I remembered something Sipho had said the night before around the fire. Rhinos see poorly. They rely on smell and movement. That memory flashed through my mind like lightning. I veered sharply to the left. The rhino thundered past the spot where I had been a second earlier, skidding slightly as it tried to adjust. But the animal was so massive that turning quickly wasn't easy. I kept zigzagging through the brush, my legs screaming in pain. Another survival tip surfaced from somewhere in my panicked mind. Find cover. Ahead of me stood a thick cluster of acacia trees and large rocks. I sprinted toward them with everything I had left. Behind me the rhino roared, a deep, angry grunt, and charged again. I dove behind a large rock just as the animal crashed into the bushes nearby. Branches snapped like gunshots. The ground shook as it slammed into the thicket. I pressed my body flat against the dirt. Don't move, don't breathe. The smell of dust and dry leaves filled my nose. My heart was pounding so violently I was sure the rhino could hear it. The footsteps came closer, heavy, slow. The rhino snorted loudly, its breath blowing through the grass somewhere just a few feet away. I could hear it moving, searching. Its horn scraped against the rock. I clenched my teeth to stop myself from gasping. Seconds passed, then a full minute. The animal stomped around the bushes, clearly confused. Without movement to guide it, it struggled to pinpoint my exact location. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the footsteps began to move away. Slowly, at first, then faster. The crashing sounds faded into the distance. I stayed frozen for several more minutes, afraid the rhino might come back. When I finally lifted my head, the bush looked exactly the same as before, quiet, golden, and deceptively peaceful, but my entire body was shaking. Eventually, Sipho found me. The rest of the group had scattered in different directions, but thankfully no one was hurt. When he saw my face, he just nodded slowly. You did the right thing. Zigzag, find cover, stay still. That night, back at the lodge, I sat outside staring at the dark horizon of the African bush. My hands still trembled when I remembered the sound of that charge. Before that day, I thought wilderness was something you explored. Now I understood the truth. Out there, you're not the explorer. You're just another fragile creature trying to survive. And sometimes survival comes down to one simple thing: knowing when to run and when to disappear.